Basically, I started elementary at T.T. Minor, lived on Olive, 2508 East Olive, and then we moved up on Denny. So then I went to Martin Luther King um, School. Well, actually, it was Harrison then Meany for junior high, and Garfield for high school. Yeah, well, my father, I know he worked for a time in the shipyards. He did a lot of construction. I know he worked on the stadium at Husky Stadium, the one they just tore down. And then he worked at the post office, and that's where he retired. My mother basically was working for Boeing, and I think that's the only job that I know that she worked for Boeing until she actually retired as well. Well, I remember, social club, my mom being part of the Amalgamates social club. And as a social club, they get together, they would have cabarets and, do different things in the community, be in the parade. They would make the floats out of the cars and, different floats and be a part of that. They were also part of the First State Golf Club, so they were really into, golfing. And so I've been to most of the golf courses around, the Seattle area, caddying and that sort of thing. They're both also in bowling leagues. My father was in Gilt Edge Bowling League. Gilt Edge, he owned a cleaners, I believe on Jackson Street. And so we were involved in that. And my mother was in a bowling league as part of her work job. So they were also in the Masonic organization. My father was a Shriner. They were both in the part of the Masonic family, so a lot of our activities, rotated around, that organizations. It could be picnics and dances and, scholarship, luncheons. Well, it was a good time, for me. I enjoyed school. I would never want to miss a day. I just remember, going, walking to Meany, like sometimes telling my kids, those straight hills that we had to climb up to go to school every day. And also for us, it was like my father was a parcel post deliverer. So he could be out in the community at any time. And he always was like, you go straight home, but, we'd always be very often had to keep our ear open for the post office truck so that he wouldn't, see us deviating from the route. But it was a good time. Just being in talent shows and the music. I played the upright bass, from elementary up to Garfield, probably my junior year. So we had a lot of activities. Garfield was the only place to be. I remember a couple of times my parents saying if my grades weren't well, I would be switched out to another school. Thankfully, that never occurred. But, I played volleyball on the team. At that time, girls, there wasn't any girls basketball. We only could do half court. I was too tall to, be in some of the dance organizations that they had. They said, no, stick with the volleyball. But I don't know. We just had a wonderful time. Going to the games at Memorial Stadium. Riding either in a car full of people. Sometimes even catching the buses. But it was something that you just had to be at. Just parties. I remember going to sock hops. Could either be in the little gym or in the big gym. But I don't know. Schools is fun. Well, most business that they talked about, it probably was at the dinner table because dinner time was the time that we talked about things. But they owned their home, from the time I was in kindergarten. So I just knew that was what it was. And then my grandfather, Gerald Wells, he was a real estate man. He's probably one of the few at that time. He actually had sold, I know, Reverend McKinney, his home. But and then when they got to another point, they did buy some other property, a multi-unit property. But as far as so that was like an encouragement, a thing that you thought that's what you do. You just you buy some property once you get of age, and basically that they helped me and my sister in buying homes, as we came of age with children. I don't know. It was always fun. There was always something you could do. You could go over to Garfield, watch a baseball game. or I ran track. Go to track meets. You can go and you can hear bands rehearsing, in different garages around, the neighborhoods. I also was in a drill team. We used to practice right off of Yester, going back and forth up and down the street trying to practice our routines. It was just a wonderful time during Mardi Gras. The parades and the festival that they would have, the carnival. I mean, that was just something that we always look forward to. You always look forward to going to different dances, and there was a lot of organizations that would sponsor children's and teenage dances. I don't ever remember a time where I would say that I'm bored. Like you might see some kids now. Because there was just always something. There's always something to do. Even outside, I remember, the musicians' picnic where you would go and entertain, and also the post office picnic. So there was just always some kind of a picnic and parties and gatherings with family and friends. We even made our own club. We called it the Sunday Club, where we get together at each other's homes and just dance, go in the basement and dance and. Just party and just have fun. And younger people, I think we planned our own events rather than relying on somebody else, the older people. So we did, get in a good feel for, how to do those kind of things, even putting on our own cabarets, or if we wanted to go to Woodland Park, we would just do that. And at an early age, we would do these kind of things. Because it wasn't that kind of a fear, being in the Central area. I know there was places. I remember this lady's house we used to go to. I don't know, we called her Mama something. But she would give out candy. I don't even remember her face, but I just remember her hand coming out. And she would be giving us candy, or take the candy. I also remember going by somebody's house, and he was supposedly had cut off his wife's head, Archibald somebody, but we, kind of run by his house really quick. But it was all in, it was all in fun and all in jest. Yeah, that was a sad time. And, I had young children in my home at the time. I had my son, he was in high school at that time. I mean, and so it was a very troubling time. I mean, I can remember, just sitting in my house and, police battered around me in the house right across the street, going in with these night lights and, trying to capture people, and, just people down the street and seeing people selling drugs. And it was a tough time. It was a discouraging time. And all I can do is, kind of talk to, my children about that. And there was a time when I had to say, that I had to make a decision about some things that I was doing and, put an end to that, because I couldn't, be hypocritical in that. But yeah, that was a hard time. I could see, a lot of the destroying of the neighborhood at that time, and just seeing people who were influenced with drugs and alcohol, and just what it did to the potential, that they may have had. I don't know if it was more going to somewhere new. I knew that I still wanted, to maintain my home in the central area, and I did get a little tired of what was going on around me. I mean, there, some of the attitudes displayed, just kind of what you saw, I really didn't like, and I just do love where I moved, and I have no desire, unfortunately, to move back to the central area, which I probably, yeah, I just never would. I do like where I am, and when I come over here, it really does dishearten me. It seems very, very crowded, now, and I know that there's a lot of, as far as neighborly things aren't kind of how it used to be. So yeah, so I did make that decision to move. A while. It's been probably around 11 years ago, but I am, I love where I am. Yeah, well, church. I went to Mount Zion from the time I was young. My grandmother went there, and so that's all I knew is Mount Zion. That's the only church that I belong to, and the church that I belong to now, which is a which it was a split actually from Mount Zion. So I still see Mount Zion as my home because, my parents, their plaques and things in their name is still there. So I still have that, that love, from my first church. But, family, I was lucky. My father was from a big family, so I was lucky to have a lot of cousins, like yourself. And so it was just always good, on holidays, getting around with your family, going in the different people's basements or in their house, and just, 'cause I guess music and dancing and singing was always just a big part of what we did. Talent shows for each other, and and parties and things. So, and just always had a lot of respect, for my cousins, and it's even like now, because we kind of gotten away from each other a lot, not knowing, our children's children on down. And so it's good, now that we are kind of coming back and seeing each other and just expressing, that love. Because it's just, I'm a type of person, I don't feel at home too many places. When I go places, I would even say like at my maternal grandparents' house, maybe because there's a step thing there, but I didn't, wasn't home. But I know that, on my father's side, anybody's, home. If I come to your home or I go into my aunt, Mary's, it's just like you just felt at home. You just felt, good. And so, and that always meant a lot to me, because a lot of times in places I do feel like the odd person out, for different reasons. And that's just something of me. So family, it does. It means a lot. Because you got encouragement, from them, and words of advice, and, things that, just pick yourself up. Because I can even remember one of my aunts, and, she would press my hair, and it all pressed up. I go outside, play, come back, and it's boing, it's back to, the natural state. But she didn't ever get, real upset with me about it. Just went on, for another day. So, that love, because everybody needs that. You just need that love and that cocoon and that, that support group. So I think it might have a lot to do with the younger people being bored, not having anything to do. I don't know, if you don't have that, that sense of community, you're kind of, fragmented, because we could just walk anywhere. I can go up this hill to my best friend's, house, and it was just like the other day I was at a memorial service, sitting around somebody. I said, yeah, didn't you live up the street? Didn't so-and-so live across the street? So we had all of that, even though we might not have been good friends, we still, felt that. And then, when I see my grandsons now, like their friends, they might be clear somewhere else in another neighborhood. It's not like and kids don't, it seems like, I don't want to, just generalize, but just that walking somewhere, that's not happening. Like, we would walk miles and miles. It no matter how hot it was or how cold it was, that's what was, that's just what went on. And so I think you don't see that. And so sometimes they rely more on their parents than themselves. And sometimes the parent might not even, be in the midst. So it's just I think a little bit of that when you don't have that close, knit community of knowing exactly what's going, who's behind those doors as you're walking down the street. Even though Mrs. Woodson kicked me out of school because one, I had pants on and a natural. But I knew she cared about me. She lived actually with my grandfather. So, you just knew people were looking out for you. My dad was coming up to school every day. So if I had done something wrong, they were going to tell him. So it's just that whole thing. And I think most of all, when you talk about that love, I was thinking about this as I was doing my Bible study lesson, is like with my parents, I tried to do right because I loved them so much. And I knew that they loved me so much. And I didn't want to disappoint. And so, trying to find one particular person who may have taken me under their wing, I can't come up with one or two. Somebody will probably come up at another time. But, there was just, so many.